and this next session is titled Coordinating Across Multiple Agencies to Assist in Ransomware Recovery, presented by Aaron Blackstone. Aaron Blackstone is the Chief Information Security Officer for the Texas Department of Public Safety. Aaron is currently a captain in the Air National Guard as a Cyber Operations Officer. He worked for the past 2 years on active duty in support of the Air Force Cyber Protection Team, and prior to that, supported the FBI Field Office in Houston as their Information System Security Officer. Aaron began his cybersecurity career with the Army Research Laboratory in White Sands Missile Range, certifying and accrediting military networks. A native of Huntsville, Aaron has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Sam Houston State University and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Texas. Aaron received his commission from the ROTC at Sam Houston State University as a second lieutenant branching military intelligence. Please help me welcome Aaron Blackstone.
Thank you, ma'am. Guess I don't need the mic. How is everyone doing today? There's good and there's bad about going this late in the day, and I feel the good part is there's only a few of y'all here. It makes things a little bit more easy to correspond and to talk. I'll do things a little different. So if y'all want to ask questions in the middle of the brief and we'll go down a little rabbit hole, feel free. The other good part is I fear some of my your compadres have already started happy hour and haven't come back yet. So, or you might have as well, and this will be a really interesting conversation if that's the case. So, like she said, Aaron Blackstone, I'm currently the CISO at Texas Department of Public Safety, and this is just going to be a kind of brief overview of some of the things that we're facing from a state agency. If you think you have it bad, imagine half your budget for cyber, and that's usually what we deal with as far as a large corporation versus the entire state of Texas. A little bit about DPS. So we're the state police, the Texas Rangers. We have the driver's license information. We have the border mission. Any police officer that pulls you over in the entire state of Texas, it runs through our network and goes up to Clarksburg, West Virginia for CGIS data. So we cover a lot, roughly 10,000 users, anywhere from 300 to 400,000 nodes, if you will, that we're dealing with. So that'll give you some perspective. And as always, I'm saying this is from me. I'm not representing the Air Force or Texas Department of Public Safety or anything like that. So common disclaimer. So first, the agenda. I think she's already maybe done a great introduction, so that will go quickly. We'll talk about the problem a little bit, coordinating real-world events, some technical details, lessons learned, ML cases. There is one slide though that I would definitely I'll recommend and do a foot stomp if you want to take that down as far as a free thing that we do that's been very beneficial, and then we'll cover any questions. Very well, moving right along. So introduction. I think we've already done a great job of that. She did a thank you for that one, so I don't know if we need to cover that one anymore. This is a slide pretty much that I show my grandmothers and family as far as what they think I do versus what I really do. The problem. So obviously cyber attacks have increased in complexity over the years, and the budget, while its spending has gone up for state agencies, it really hasn't. We have to go and ask for legislative funds to reappropriate and actually get funding to support our mission. And that's actually protecting all of your data. So we're actually, every driver's license in the state of Texas, all their facial recognition, fingerprint, that goes, we protect that. And so obviously a lot of governments have been under attack. Now we have a little bit better as the state coordination, but some of the smaller entities, think about if you're a company or anything, if you have third-party vendors that are on your network, or if you're partnering with someone else that maybe has a smaller cyber budget. The enemy is not going to go after you because obviously they know that's a more difficult target. They're going to target a third party and come in that way. That way it's they still get the crown jewels, a little bit easier on them, and the next thing you know, you're having to cover for the third party, which is kind of where we're at. Like I said, those municipalities and sheriff's offices that are out somewhere in the boondocks, if you will, they're still connected to our network, so we still have to kind of worry about them. Also, this is the state, so we don't have a lot of funds as far as personnel. We do a great job of recruiting and then training them up and then watching them walk right out the door, making usually double. So we're actually experts at that. But we do things to try to compensate that. So we have, if you're familiar with Cyber Patriot, it's a high school deal that we will go to and try to recruit high school students to get them interested in cybersecurity during our lunch hour. We have interns that actually come from that program on the summertime, and hopefully we pull them along for when they get to college. We have college interns. We do paid internships there. Usually we look for digital forensics people. UTSA has a NSA-approved program that we like to recruit from as well. So we try to recruit as much as we can to keep them as often. But like I said, they just walk out the front door and make double. So it's an ongoing challenge. I hit the laser. You said I was going to do that. I hit the laser. And also, we have in the event of an incident, who do you contact? There's a lot of laws and regulations and a lot of issues that we deal with. One of the problems that we're currently facing is, and we're going to talk about 3 incidents in a minute, is when do certain individuals take over, and where's their roles and responsibilities? So, for example, if you look at what happened in Colorado and Atlanta, the 2 big differences was, at least from my point of view, the Adjutant General, who is the head of National Guard military forces for the state, was also in charge of the emergency management. So it was a little bit easier for him to activate military forces to help out and facilitate. And that's one of the things that they attribute to Colorado costing less and getting back on track faster than Atlanta. We have the same issue, obviously, with Texas. Unfortunately, I can't speak for New York, but it rolls into when can we get those additional resources and when can we request them. Currently, DPS for the entire state is the only one that can actually send troops on ground within a timely manner very quickly. We are looking at Texas Military Forces or bringing military on, but their problem is it has to be declared a disaster. Otherwise, they can't put hands on keyboard. Well, what city or municipality wants to declare it a disaster? Because it makes them look bad. So they try to shy away from that. Well, there's the conundrum. It's a chicken or egg scenario, which comes first. So the 3 real-world events that we're going to discuss, I just labeled them 1, 2, and 3. I decided to only limit it to recent events, and so January, March, and April. And I'll let you can read, but roughly the first one that was hit, they were hit twice, once before, and then they thought that they were going to get rid of it. There was only 1 server at the time, and then they built it from backups, but their backups were already infected, so all that did was just, oh, well, let me hit you harder. Now I got 12 servers. Now you're going to pay again. And they ended up paying. They wouldn't tell us how much, so we didn't pry too much. I felt kind of bad for them. The second was the sheriff's office just out in the middle of nowhere. My people were hating me for sending them to that one because there was, I think, like 1 hotel. And they're also doing it by scale, if you notice. The first one we don't know, but the second one was roughly 1 Bitcoin or $5,000. The third instance, which my guys just got back from, and we're actually still pulling the data. And when we do get the data, we pull it and we hand it over to the law enforcement side of DPS so they can try to go after them and get these guys. But it was 40 servers, and they're asking for roughly 90 Bitcoin or 460K. So they can scale it to the city. That'll also tell you how big the entity is as well. Lesson learned, we're gonna jump to it later, but I'll go ahead and point it out this time. I keep switching it on. I'm not even trying to do that. Whatever you do not reboot your servers or use any type of cleaning or defrag them or, I thought we were gonna help. That doesn't help. And make sure your third party or your whoever's attached to you doesn't do that either, because we'll lose a lot of the data that we need for collections, and it'll make it very difficult for us to go back through it. So we're going to delve into just the first one. All 3 of them are very similar in nature. They're ransomware attacks. You already knew that one. But the attack vector usually changes. So sometimes it's an RDP that wasn't properly configured, and they left the admin as a login credential. Usually it's phishing attack. That's usually what they're going for, is phishing, though. But other things happen. Sometimes they've even brute forced an SSH account, which that one boggled my mind on that one, that nobody noticed. But so moving right along, when our guys got there, this is the first thing they noticed. This account, the admins didn't even know it was there, And as you can tell, one of the first things that popped out was the PS scan. This is a terminal server, so it has the ability for them to log into it, so the admins can work from home and work remotely, and they can get help. So a lot of the small town municipalities will need help, and so they set it up to where contractors can remote in. But the PS scan, for those of you that don't know, is a really portable port scanner, which should be your first clue that's probably not something that the admin is going to use. They're going to have their own server set up for vulnerability scanning, using something else, not something that's that portable that's designed for this. And this is if you want to look through a textbook, what do hackers do? Per textbook, this case we're going to look at is exactly textbook. So they get in, they'll pull their tools across, their scanning tools. They'll try to pivot. They'll do an enumeration of the network internally because you can see greater stuff from there. And then they will, and that's that PS scan right there. You can see right there. And then they probably use John the Ripper to crack the passwords for it. And once you crack the passwords on one, usually it'll have admin passwords, because they're going to leave an admin password on there. They do every time. They don't think to remove it from the system. So now they have the network admin password, and it just propagates from there. Let's see. So one of the clever ways they did this time, which was, it's both impressive and sunk them all at the same time, is they pulled the Google Chrome Portable, which is impressive because an admin is not going to notice, Chrome. They're probably using some Internet Explorer, Chrome. They're not going to notice if they see Chrome on the network. It's portable, so it's not going to follow any of the rules and regulations that they've set up as far as network traffic. And with that, we were able to determine, so all of their traffic, we hit the gold mine as far as seeing what exactly they did. They didn't delete it afterwards, which was, they're probably assuming that the ransomware was just going to cover their tracks. That's usually I'm jumping ahead, but that's usually what they do. And so we looked in that folder, and I'm hitting the laser again. And we start finding a treasure trove of information and details that were just, they'd cracked the passwords, they had got PII information, they had went through and enumerated all of the users and used John the Ripper to crack the passwords. They had pretty much the entire network, they owned it. Now here's another tricky part though, is we're not really sure why, or if it's the same entity that broke in and did this versus hit them with ransomware. So usually the entity will use ransomware to come in and cover their tracks, and they'll still get more money as they're kind of like walking out the door, so to speak. But this one, we suspect it could be two different entities that were competing for the network, and then the other one just hit the nuke button and did ransomware, because the admins had not caught on yet that all this was happening as of yet. And we'll get to it in a minute. They were actually siphoning money and purchasing products and shipping it to themselves at a interesting location. And again, nobody caught anything, so I don't know why they did that, which leads us to believe it's probably two different entities. One of the things they did, and this is again classic, is we see here they used the free SSH. So what that does is it allows them to pull and exfiltrate data across the network, and if somebody sees it over SSH, nothing's going to catch it really that they had in place. No SIM's not going to catch it. They're just going to look like normal traffic. But again, this is perfect on how you exfiltrate data. So this is class book, textbook. Then we're going to look at, this is actually the tracking information, and I forget where it was delivered. We had the exact address where they bought it online, and they sent it to a retirement community in Virginia. And we actually contacted the retirement community and tried to get cameras and data. We handed this over to, obviously, the CID, and they're pursuing it currently right now. But I just thought that was pretty brazen. Usually you're going to see them try to use Bitcoin or something like that, as opposed to actually buying something on the internet and mailing it, obviously, to, I'm going to guess one of their family members is there, or they work there. That's just a random guess, but we're not sure. And some of the lessons learned, this is the foot stomp screen that I would encourage everyone to take a screenshot of. This has been the most beneficial, the second part of that has been the most beneficial thing that we've done at the agency. And I'll go reverse order. So we block macros unless they're signed or unsigned. So first of all, you should just block macros, period. Just, if you can, just do it. The problem is finance and HR are going to come back and they will say, no, we have to have these macros. We've been using them since the 1990s. We don't want to change them. We're staying with macros, and we're the business, so we get to say what we want to do. So you say, okay. You come back and you digitally sign all of the macros that they use. And you digitally sign it and only let the digital signatures macros go through, then at least you know it's not an outside macro. It's not something from the outside entity, which has been is great as far as now we can also show an ROI to hire to the director and says, we initiated this program and we could tell you that we would have been hit X number of times by ransomware had we not had these macros included. So one of the issues that I try to push down to everyone is ROI for cybersecurity, how you do it, it's black hole of money. And how do you show that value in return? This is one of those ways. So this way you could say, and I think last counted, we would have had roughly, I think it was anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000, depending on it, that times we've caught it. Now the number obviously was very high at first, and this is of course the state of Texas. It's gone down since then, but also as we catch it, we say, well, how did it get past our solutions, our vendors? We're paying X amount of money for all this high dollar cyber capabilities, firewalls and IDSs, IPSs, the SIM, you name it, we've got it. Well, how did it get by? How did it get through? And so we've been able to go back and really validate our controls and make them a little bit more strict and stringent. The first part will go in reverse order, like I said. Please just try to encourage people not to mess up the network or really touch it, if you will, in any way. Segregate it off, put it in its own VLAN if you can, but whatever issues has been hit, try to get them off your network, but on a separate network where it can't hurt anything. A lot of times people want to be helpful, and in trying to be helpful, they lose a lot of the evidence that would make our jobs easier. And let's see, lockdown RDP, promote awareness. A lot of the times the small municipalities don't know about, they know about cybersecurity and what they shouldn't or should do, but it's not really propagated, and they haven't been properly trained. So I would encourage I know everyone here is properly trained, otherwise you wouldn't be at a conference like this. But a lot of people aren't. So try to propagate and try to let them know. Free, I don't know, this is not a sales pitch, I work for the state. But we put out a newsletter every month, and you can access it, and it just has general information on how to, like how do I send an encrypted email, or free software that, if I'm sending my CPA, my bank records, you can download. That's an encryption wizard from Air Force. It's DoD 8570 compliant. It's free for the general public. Most people don't know use about it. You both download it, and you can send it in anything encrypted for free. Things like that. Just general knowledge, so please feel free to download that or pass that along to other people that might benefit it. And there's a really good challenge, if you like those little cyber challenges, that we encourage people to try to get interested. Ask for immediate help as well, and I'm going to stomp my foot on test your disaster recovery, because the third entity that my guys just got back from, they said, oh, well, we had backups for our Exchange and DC server. Those are important, right? Your DC server and your Exchange, that's vital. We've got backups. They start trying to pull the backups online, and they can't. They never tested it before. But they knew they were getting backups, but they never actually tested it. So I was like, ooh, that's going to be painful. On complete rebuild of your network. That's going to be difficult. Use cases and lessons learned. Again, test the backup plan and recovery at least quarterly. Create a Rolodex of entities that can call. So anybody in here, think about it. If you do get hit, you maybe do have a plan. Have you actually executed? Have you looked? The numbers even still work on the phone calls. So we had numbers for an FBI agent who we had just on Rolodex, and they'd been retired for I think 5 years. When we finally tested out and tried calling them, and it didn't work. And I called some of my other buddies from the FBI, and I was like, "Hey, what happened?" They're like, "Oh, they retired 5 years ago. Who you looking for?" So vet those out. Have a plan. Know at least who you're going to contact. Let's say you're doing a third party. Have the third party vetted. Have already the MOAs in place with other entities. So when something does happen, it's an easy transition instead of jumping through hoops saying, "What are we going to do?" Texas military forces say, yeah, we want to go, declare it a disaster. We're not declaring a disaster because I'm up for re-election in 3 months. So what are you going to do? Think about those problems, and I know y'all don't have those specific problems, but think about things like that if it hits your network, what are you going to do? A lot of the files I keep on my laptop, if I was hit with ransomware, I don't have them any other place. That's a lie. I have a Mac and I haven't backed up. But I'm just saying most people don't. So make sure that you're helping others out if you don't. And even look at yourself. How often are you doing backups? Let's see. Like I said, similar attacks in Atlanta, Colorado, and Albany. What we're looking for is, and we're actually taking our interns, and by no means are our interns or our people going to be able to really get into AI and ML. We're not in that competition, but we're doing our research as far as what does that look like and what would we like to use for it. So use cases for us are, as we're turning this information over to the Criminal Investigation Division, are we able to kind of do a profiling? And I use that loosely because profiling, usually it's one person, but maybe it's an entity. And say, these tactics we've noticed with X, Y, Z, and we notice them here, and again, so this is probably the same nefarious actor, and let's group all of them together, and then we could try to do a deep dive and actually get rid of some of this anonymity that they're hiding under and are protected by. Oh, that's the time. Okay, 10 minutes. Yes, one of the things we're also looking at is there's billions of events. We go roughly through hundreds of anomalies that we have to go through, fatigue, and we're looking for a way to take that down to just a few anomalies that are actually credible and real. And you can look at what happened with Target with that. They saw it coming. It was actually an alert amongst the 100,000 alerts that they already had and didn't have time to look through. So, and that, oh man, well, I bruised through those. Are there any questions? That's my email address. Feel free to email me, and if you have any questions, I'm like I said, a public official, so feel free to give me a call if you want to talk about the Texans or the Cowboys as well, fantasy football drafts. I'm open to any conversations. Cyber, I'll keep going. I could talk all day about. So that's. I mean, I got another PowerPoint. We can keep going if I got more time. I don't know. Are there any questions? I've been rambling. Yes, sir.
We just recently did an internal ransomware. We've done phishing exercises internally just to see what the response is and the reactions. What do you do to recommend some of the just real scenario testing to see how well prepared we really are from an incident response or communication and crisis coordination perspective?
Correct. So we recommend quarterly, but that's usually a little too aggressive. As far as going through the whole gambit. So we do the same thing as far as phishing. We try to phish our own people, and that's another ROI, great question that goes into metrics as far as how many, so we send it to 10,000 users, what percentage of those users will open the email, what percentage will actually click on the link, and what percentage will enter their credentials into it. And then also what percentage will report it to spam. So that way we know, is our program working? Do they know that they're supposed to send it to spam? Because in the automation process, as soon as they send it to spam, we take it, we quarantine it, we actually start a trouble ticket that starts going through, starts executing and running it, and a lot of that is already automated. If they send it to spam, 9 times out of 10, they send it to us. It's like, I didn't send this, and I don't know this person. Do you know him? I don't know him either. Invoice is really bad for finance. That's been a pain point. But like I said, definitely pull up your backups, go through at least quarterly. That's what we suggest. Make sure the numbers, at least annually, make sure the numbers are accurate. As far as who you're going to call, and what are your plans? Different attacks will mean different responses. So, great question. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that the backups, the backup site also gets infected. Mm-hmm. So what kind of things have you done to prevent that? Have you actually using immutable storage and saving your configuration separately and data separately?
Correct. So usually, at least there's two different. So cyber and IT are a little bit different in our organization. So and I have no control over them. We can make recommendations to IT, and they don't always listen. So that's my first caveat to this. Second of all, we're on a separate network, and we back our stuff up to 2 or 3 places. It just depends on the time frame. So daily, we usually do on the configs. It's weekly. Anytime there's a change on the configs, we back it up XYZ, and then on monthly, 6-month, and year, we back up to different locations. So that way, if we do have to go back, we can go back far enough. Then we just roll back the CCB change management board that we had, and we could say, okay, this one was a month ago. These are the changes we made, and we can recreate it fairly easy after that.
Correct, but are you isolating those configurations?
Yes, yes, they're all air-gapped.
Thank you.
All of them are air-gapped. Yes. Yes, sir. So they might get you on the backup you did just last week, but then you can go back a month and pull that one, and you'll have to do some modifications, but at least you're not doing it from scratch, which was the entity number 3. They are rebuilding from scratch, and I feel very sorry for them. I told them they need to declare disaster and just bite the bullet and have military forces come in and help them out, but they said they didn't want to do that some reason. So
The reason I was asking is because you did mention it, the challenges that companies that are getting into is that synchronization.
yes.
So it's how do you minimize the total impact? So,
Yes, sir. Excellent question. Oh, I've been letting you take the mic around.
So, in the 3 incidents that you described,
Yes, sir.
did any kind of AI or ML, was there any kind of AI ML featured package? Were they in use to do some threat hunting, like right when it exploded?
Unfortunately not. So these entities that we're talking about are all municipalities that didn't have a cyber person there at all. They barely have an IT person. So the answer to the question is no, we would like them to be, and we would like there to be. And actually, as the state, as the hire, that's why we're looking into trying to find something to help them out. And as far as ARML go, to help even rebuild the network, I think that'd be a use case that I've heard nobody at this conference talk about, and I was paying attention because I was like, I wonder if anybody's going to mention that, because it's always finding the adversary, anything like that. What if the adversary's already hit AIRML to rebuild maybe even a separate network in the cloud? Because a lot of these aren't in the cloud. They're still, we're talking about little cities. They're still maybe 10 years behind. This would be a great time, if you're like, well, the house blew up. Let's rebuild it. I want to put a pool in the backyard. I want to do this, and this. Let's throw it up in AWS, and let's put a lot of controls in place that would be beneficial. But AIRML could help send something through, scan the network, and pull up all that data points. Yes, sir.
Right. But was there any attempt to maybe simulate and recreate the scenario to convince the municipality that if you had these particular packages or infrastructure installed, number one, you wouldn't have gotten hit. Number 2, the response time would have been blah.
Yes. Yes. So and not in reference to AI and ML, but in reference to just general cybersecurity, because they're so far behind the times, though. They don't even have training for don't click on the emails and don't do that, and they're using admin for credentials. They have the regular configs for a router. So what you're talking about would be, yes, we have that, and we want to tell them you need to do these things, but we have to come back and go basic 101 and get them there. So we're still working with those entities to this day to try to get them up to that path and to try to work with other. So there's a hierarchy. There's DIR, Department of Information Resources, which is like the IT for all of Texas. So any vendors in here, if you want to do business in Texas, go through DIR. And so we're using that as saying, hey, they've already worked with MSSPs. They already know they've already kind of set that out. So you need to contact them, and they're usually the people that contact first, and they'll help you and say what are your options, because we need you to get to XYZ over here, and you're at ABC. So there's a slow path, and we want them to jump. I want them to jump to XYZ, but that hasn't been very successful. So if you come up with a solution on how to jump there, at least for a selling point, let me know, because when you're dealing with, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna share this conversation we had, because I was sitting here and I did it's one of those moments you're like, I don't think they heard me. So the instance, the city in the first instance, we're on a phone call, and there's DIR, there's DPS, and we're discussing, what to do and what they did already. And they said, well, we contacted, the vendor that built the network, and they're on it. And we stopped for a minute and we said, so I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. So the vendor that built your current network that was currently got ransomware twice, in December with the 1 server and later with the 12 servers. And they fixed it in December. So the vendor came in and fixed it in December, and it didn't fix. And now they hit you for 12 servers, and you're using the same vendor to fix it again? Is that correct? They're like, yeah, no, they're on it. They're going to get it. Okay, well, and so that's the level that we're dealing with here. So it's sometimes you got to baby step them through until they get to where they should be. Great questions, though. Yes, sir.
The requirement of the emergency to deploy military resources in the state, is the primary purpose of that fiscal resources, or is it just not to overstretch military resources?
So first of all, so it's not military. You say military resources, we have to make that designation. It's National Guard.
Yeah.
So the National Guard, and they have the resources, but for legal requirements and legal issues, they have to declare it a disaster, which gets tricky because, and this is maybe too much for Texas. Texas Department of Emergency Management, the people that declared a disaster at this point in time, cyber wasn't in there. Cyber wasn't in the rules that you could declare a cyber disaster. So actually this biennium, they're actually putting that in the legislative that cyber can be declared a disaster, and TDEM can execute that and actually give it to TDEM's authority versus the municipality saying, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, now TDEM can just say, you're doing it. But no, there are resources available. Like I said, I'm a captain in the cyber protection team out at Lackland, 273rd. So we have people that can help and can do it. The question is just the steps that they have to take to actually put that process in place. One of the ones I'm proposing, which depending on who you talk to is good or bad, is 1 week DPS sends their team out, our team, my team, we go out. And then that gives the military enough time to activate the guardsmen, pick and choose what the scenario is, because obviously certain guardsmen are better at other things. If you got we have a guy that works for VM, if they have a VMware's, is there really their infrastructure and they use it heavy, I want to pull him for that. This just makes common sense. So, and then have them go out the 2 weeks following DPS, so we actually do that handover. So we say, oh, here's all the data, guys, we got it for you, and actually we're going to take this data back, 'cause on the legal and law enforcement side, we got to turn to them, but I'm going to let you keep working on it, and so you can try to determine the adversary and even help with the recovery phase and the rebuild. Because a lot of times we're just trying to get the evidence. That's the main focal point, and then after we gathered all the evidence, then help them with the rebuild. So it's a little bit different, but great question. Probably too much about Texas that you want to know, but.
Have you guys done like a gap analysis for the state to find out like what, because it sounds like there's a number of folks that maybe need to come up to speed. Are you working with somebody to do that, or have you done it?
So we have done a gap analysis. So it's the agency security plan per House Bill 8 last biennium. All of the larger agencies have done that gap analysis, and they have that rating. They know where they're at. But it's only required for at a state level agencies. It's not required for the municipalities who we're connected to and who are at the greatest risk, because if you're trying to get in my network, you're not going to go after me. You're going to go after Walker County, where I'm from, who's got one IT guy and he's also the cyber guy. And then the number 2 instance up here, I was on the phone with the sheriff and I said, well, how did you determine your IT guy? And I'm going to try to do the accent because he was awesome. I loved it. He goes, he was born in the 1990s, so he's our IT guy. And he's a deputy with a gun. He was born in the 1990s, so he's the IT guy. And so I'm like, I'm on mute, I'm crying, laughing, I'm going, but that's what we're dealing with, and it's such a true statement. So, but yeah, that's the answer to your question, sir.
That sounds like another rule situation where like they can't go to that level with that. And the same thing with declaring the national emergency. It wasn't even allowed, right?
Well, correct. So TDM couldn't declare it. Now, they could still request it as the municipality, but at least for Texas, it's usually like the local JP or the kind of the county, over the county, so the sheriff. You're looking at the sheriff and that side, that they can actually request it, and then you can decide it, versus TDM that just says, it's a disaster, send help. Great questions, though. Anything else? I think I've already went over my time. So my apologies to the next speaker. Then I fear I've went over my time. But thank y'all. Appreciate all the
Thank you,
questions as
Aaron.
well.